Going it alone in your own business is a big step. It takes hard work and dedication, but can be incredibly rewarding when you get it right. But if you found yourself working long into the night, you might be beginning to think there has to be a way to achieve a better work-life balance and still stay as productive. If so, you're in the right place. I'm Kate Russell, and this is In Good Company, a show full of SME chat with a slice of tech, brought to you by BT. You've read the books, you've heard how the superstar CEOs do it. Get up at 4 a.m, fire off 30 emails, head off for a 5k run, meet the team, work through lunch, work through dinner, work through into the night, head to bed at midnight, squeeze in 3 hours sleep, and then get ready to do it all again. Oh, and weekends? What's one of those? But putting in hundreds of hours doesn't guarantee success. And if you look beyond the hype, you'll find plenty of research that shows being more flexible and even reducing the amount of hours we work, as counterproductive as it sounds, can actually make us more productive. Take Henry Ford. Back in 1914, he cut workers' hours from 9 to 8, and business boomed. How could that be? Well, his staff were happier and felt more goodwill to the company, so they worked a little harder. One study shows when we're happier, we're 12% more productive. Of course, you can't just start working less because your business will always suffer. But maybe if you turn to tech, you'll find a helping hand. Yet again, I have to congratulate you on being in exactly the right place, as today we'll be hearing from a couple of SMEs who are so balanced you could use them as weighing scales, and one first-class expert in the field of flexible work. They're going to share with you the secrets of their success and how they use tech to create a more flexible working environment and get more done in less time. They're with me in the studio now. It's Laura Fullerton, founder and director of Fitty London.
Hello.
Welcome to you. Alongside Laura, we've got Nathan Ampofo and Edward Boone of A2B Assessments. Hi, guys.
Hey there.
And, of course, we wouldn't be in good company without an expert of all things flexible working, and that is 10 to 2 Managing Director Deborah O'Sullivan.
Hi, Kate.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. Laura, before you founded Fitty, you were working in the world of advertising. That's quite a leap. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how that came about and also sort of summary what Fitty does?
Absolutely. So, yes, it was quite a leap. So I worked as one half of a creative team. And every now and then you get in a brief that really excites you. But, most of the time I wasn't really enjoying it. And I guess at the time I was getting really into fitness and nutrition. And like full disclosure, I'm a massive geek on this kind of subject. And I'd had this idea of starting a health and fitness subscription box. And it just got to the point where I thought, why not? And so that's kind of how Fitty was born. And I guess just to give you a bit of background, Fitty is the monthly health and fitness box. And
by a box, I guess you mean like, when people deliver farm vegetables once a week or whatever, is it? It's
that kind of thing.
What you need for your week's fitness.
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess our mission is to help people perform at their best, both mentally and physically. And that's through nutrition and exercise. So that's why we create these boxes which are full of like the hottest nutritional foods and workout products to help you perform at your best.
So I suppose as well, we're talking about flexible working and achieving a better work-life balance. And I guess, you would be an advocate for when you have all this extra time, the best way to fill it is actually to raise your well-being through health and fitness as well, right?
Absolutely. That's what I'm all about.
Have you noticed, though, since starting your own business, did you notice that there was a massive increase in your workload? What was that transition like from going from, I guess advertising is quite a high pressure job anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
But did that change for you when you started your own business?
Absolutely. I think increasing is probably an understatement. Because when I started Fitty, I was doing it alongside the advertising job. So Fitty Essential was my bid on the side and I was kind of juggling the two. And there were some pretty dark days. I kind of lost all evenings, lost weekends. I was incredibly stressed. I became a shell of a human being. And it was quite ironic because I got into Fitty because I loved nutrition, I loved working out, and I had no time to work out and just ended up eating rubbish and feeling, awful as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. So roll the clock forward then. I mean, we're going to talk to about the tech in depth a little later, but let's focus on the human cost for a little longer. You've pushed through that now. You've managed to get a work-life balance.
Yeah.
When was the realisation, and what was the sort of the human cost of the guilt of saying, actually, I've got to shed some of this?
I mean, I think guilt really hits the nail on the head, because at first I had this overwhelming sense of guilt. If I was in the gym at midday, or if I was working from abroad, just thinking, God, I shouldn't be doing this. I felt like I was almost pulling a sickie or something, when actually I'd still be pulling more hours than my colleagues still working the 9 to 5. But yeah, it took a long time to kind of get over that. And I think a lot of that just came through time, and also like meeting and working with other kind of, entrepreneurial types. And then even things like, I don't know if you've read Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week, but it kind of opened my mind to this whole other world. And it was a massive, massive shift in mentality. And I think, looking back, the 9 to 5 culture, it's really bizarre. We're kind of taught that you have to be in office for these 8 hours. And if you don't have work to fill it, you find work. And equally, if we were there for 15 hours, I'm sure we'd find work to fill those 15 hours. But I think looking back, if you can find a way to do the same amount of work in half the time, why wouldn't you?
Interesting. Well, Deborah, let's bring you in for a moment. You consult with businesses of all shapes and sizes on flexible working. How often do you have sort of experience of hearing similar worries to Laura's, am I going to get less done?
Yeah, I mean, Laura's story is actually very typical of a small business, particularly in startup mode, where people take on a task, they have their vision, they know how they want it to work, and very quickly get quite frustrated that it's not moving fast enough. And actually there's hundreds of other things that have to be done in order to make the business operate. So lots of people go in with a fabulous idea, and lots of small businesses fail because of that underlying business support infrastructure, and that taking away from the actual proposition the business is trying to promote. What's quite interesting is that we often see businesses, so we talk to businesses and we help businesses recruit. And what often happens is there's a pinch point, as Laura was discussing. And the pinch point is often, it'll be somebody can't do a tax return again, or actually they've realised they've spent all week doing administration when they should have been talking to customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there any sort of like tips or advice or strategies, coping strategies, to help people overcome their fears and adopt a different approaches to more productive working?
So obviously we're advocates of flexible working in all its guises, and that could be, it could be anything. It could be, as Laura was saying, you're working from home full time. It could be a 9-day fortnight, part days, part weeks. As soon as you bring in some level of flexibility into your working week, it allows you to think about what else you're going to do in the time you're freeing up. And the coaching we always give is that make use of that time. So what you tend to find is, Laura was talking about guilt earlier, which is a really interesting one. So workers who start working from home feel terrible guilt. It's remarkable. And it's things like, well, if you made the decision to work from home, then separate out your boundaries. I'm going to take a lunch break. I'm going to go for a run. I will stop working at 6 o'clock so that I can spend time with my family and kids. Whatever your rules are, make sure that they're written down, they're planned, and that you stick by them. And if it doesn't seem to be working, review it and adapt it as necessary. But it sort of brings in some discipline into it. And I think what's really interesting about the guilt thing is that you're never going to have an empty inbox. It's always going to be filling up. It doesn't matter how many hours you do. There's studies that show that actually when people start to work from home for the first time, their productivity shoots through the roof. But then there's a sort of a dropout where they realise they can't carry on with that level of productivity. And so you have to take control of that. Although interestingly, studies have shown that productivity increases by about 30% when people start working more flexibly. Back to your point about they're more happy, and happy workers are more productive workers.
Okay, well, Nathan and Ed, you guys obviously need no convincing because you've got 25 people working for you and they are all remote and working across different assessment centres all over London and Reading. Was that a conscious decision on your part at the very beginning of A to B assessments?
No. We started with before we took our first office, small office with no windows, and it was just Ed and I, and we were doing everything. So initially, that was how we took off. I think as we kind of grew and realised that we needed to have more locations.
And some sunlight.
Yeah. That we could afford a room with windows. We kind of grew a little bit and were able to sort of bring in that more flexible working. I mean, I think we had in our minds the idea of working flexibly, but like the guys have said already, when we started, you just work all hours. And you are quite productive to start with, and then you hit like a wall where, I mean, we both hit it. We just couldn't work anymore, and it was almost kind of worse, I guess, than when we started for other people. And then you have that realisation that actually you've got to split it. So we sort of tried a few different things, haven't we? We
tried doing the 5-hour work day, which was Stefan Arnolds from, I might have pronounced that wrong.
Is this one of these sort of productivity help books?
So he runs Tower paddleboards, and he's an entrepreneur, and he just shifted his whole workforce to a 5-hour work day. And we both read the article and we were like, yeah, let's try that. So one of us worked in the morning, and then we overlapped for an hour. The other one worked in the afternoon, and we tried to run it like that for a while. But then as we sort of expanded, we realised that didn't quite work. We needed to be working together a lot. So then we brought someone else on board, and they started working a split at the start. So they were working in the morning, having a break, and then coming back in the evening. So I think we've always tried to be sort of adaptable.
Yeah, I mean, we've got sort of a mixed team of staff and freelance people, and everybody kind of works different shifts. So it has to obviously fit in with what the business needs, but it also fits in with what the team need as well, because they essentially come on board to work those hours. And it changes. I think that's the really important thing to remember, that it doesn't stay the same the whole way through. Like an idea you have at the start, very often you get to a certain point of the business as it's growing, and then you realise that you actually have to do it a slightly different way, and you can't really be too proud to sort of keep doing the same thing that we've done. Like as Ed said, we've had the 5-hour splits, a 5-hour and the split days. And we kind of got to a place now where actually we've sort of altered that a little bit at the moment. So we've got overlapping, but the day's a 6-hour day, so it just sort of moves about.
It's strange, isn't it? Because we're kind of brought up to believe if you work hard, then you're going to be successful. and that's kind of like, that's counterintuitive to taking more time off. You've got 25 staff. Ed, do you see sort of like, see the way that your staff are compared to perhaps other people working? Are they happier? Are they more productive for you? Are they more willing to go that extra mile when they need to?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, everyone's pretty free to do whatever they want, really.
I want to come and work for you.
We've got so many locations that people can go into and work from, but that doesn't mean they have to go there. I mean, they can work from home if they want to, or a coffee shop if they want to. It's pretty free.
That takes a lot of trust, though, Nathan, doesn't it? On your part, you've got to trust, because you're paying these people good money, right? How do you know that they're actually doing the job that you're paying them for?
I think that is a challenge, especially at the start, because when you start as a small business, you tend to do everything yourself. So you get to a point where you can't do everything yourself, and you've got to bring other people on. You talked about, was it a pinch point earlier on? And I think we hit that we couldn't do the admin, we couldn't do the actual report writing, we couldn't answer the phones, we just couldn't do it all. And you recruit kind of from your inner circle, I guess, to start with, sort of friends or friends of friends, and then you run out of friends of friends who are suitable, and then you kind of have to open up to recruiters and things like that. And yeah, there's a lot of trust, and I think you've got to accept that sometimes things don't work and you change it. And I think that's part and parcel of learning and developing.
I think one of the things I would add is that working with our clients who have lots of remote workers, the key to it is to think about what you want that person to do. So every person has got clear objectives. You know what your expectations are. You're very clear with them about what the expectations are, and you give them the tools, whatever they may be, to do that job. And that's the trust. The trust is, I don't care when you do that work. You can do it every evening, all throughout the week if you like. You can do it all Sunday. It doesn't matter as long as that job gets done. And that's the attitude you guys seem to be talking about. We've seen our clients do it very successfully. But you do have to put that effort in up front to make sure you know what that person needs to do.
So be clear on the role, have clarity in what your expectations are from your staff. How do you, Nathan and Ed, keep everyone on the same page in terms of, the company goals and progress? Because if they're all remote or at different locations, is that a struggle? Is there any technology that you use to bring everyone together virtually?
Yeah, I mean, we use online drives basically as our sort of source of sharing information and keeping communications easy between everyone. So yeah, I mean, for us, the online drive system was a real godsend, wasn't it? We sort of stumbled across it.
Yeah, pretty much by accident, really. Like, we realised that having 10 different iterations of a document wasn't really going to work because someone would be working a different one. So yeah, just really simple kind of online cloud-based system that we could all be working in at the same time just became very quickly so integral.
What about do you have to sort of make sure that, obviously for data protection and GDPR stuff like that, do you have sort of like a set of rules in place so all your staff know what can go on those drives and what protections need to be attached to them?
Yeah, obviously GDPR was a huge thing that came in last May. And for us, we need to make sure that we follow that. And the great thing about the online drive is you can essentially give people different permissions to access things. You can bring in things like two-factor authentication to make sure that things are protected and can't be easily accessed by people who shouldn't see them.
Deborah, do you have any experience with any sort of productivity or team management tools for remote teams like Slack or...
Yes. So what we find is our clients, they tend to find their own tools that work best for them. So a client we've been working with lately, they make big use of WebEx as a conferencing tool, Skype for Business for instant messaging. So if you're remote and you might spend all your day in your home office, actually having little instant messages popping up from your colleagues saying, did you see the football last night? Or are you going for your lunchtime walk that you promised you were going to do? That sort of thing helps you stay engaged with your wider community. I think the video conferencing is absolutely key because the quality is so much better now than it ever used to be.
Yeah.
And I actually think the barrier, there's so much tech out there that can be very, very supportive. And the barrier is that often people just are a bit scared of it.
Yeah. And I guess, when it comes to things like teleconferencing, it's not just about team management. Probably a lot of clients and customers, whatever, will be happy to save the time of a journey and hosting you in an office or whatever.
More and more, all of the global warming stuff that's in the news at the moment, it's encouraging people not to travel, not to meet up face to face. So the teleconferencing is an ideal way. I mean, I appreciate you do need to, because often there's nothing replaces this face-to-face interaction. But I think people are more inclined now to just accept that that's a sensible way to do business, financially and for the planet.
I guess as well, I mean, what Nathan and Ed have exhibited there is not trying to do everything all at once. Would that be your advice? Because there is this sort of like, okay, I'm ready for change. I'm just going to do everything right now.
Yes.
And then suddenly you're overwhelmed by the processes that you've got to learn.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a plan. The whole thing about making a successful business and growing it is having your plan. So setting your vision early but reviewing it. Is one thing I'd always recommend, because your vision at the start might not be the same in 3 years' time, because what happens is you can change your proposition as you are developing your business, and then you realise you've actually not communicated that to your staff. So unless they're following your external communications, they might just be a little bit behind. So again, that team communications, having your plan and communicating and reviewing it regularly is one of the key things we would always say for business growth.
Laura, do you use any specific technology, or what's your sort of setup in terms of allowing you to be more productive?
So I am a huge fan of tech and tools, and I use them every day. Where do I start? One of the big ones is Boomerang, which is like an app that plugs into Gmail. I think that's amazing. So what it does is it kind of batches my emails. So I set certain times. So I think it's 3 times the day I'll have all my emails that come into my inbox. And so that stops me kind of checking throughout the day and seeing emails here and there, and allows me to stay really focused on whatever it is I'm working on at the time, because my mind is all over the place. So that really helps me. One of the others is called the Pomodoro technique. I don't know if you've heard of it, and I don't know if I'm saying it right either, but it's just something you bring up on your web browser. And you can set different times, but it's normally an alarm goes off and you work solidly for 20 minutes, like no distractions, no looking at your phone. Then the alarm goes off and you have a 5-minute break. And the idea is you have to take that 5-minute break. So like go away from your screen. Don't think like, oh, I'll just quickly finish this. And then you go back and do another 20 minutes. And I think it's after like the third or fourth interval, you have 20 minutes or a half-hour break. And I get so much done doing that because it just stops you kind of like frittering around. So that is something I massively rate. And yeah, I'd encourage everyone to give that a go.
Laura, what other technologies do you use to try and help you be more mindful of your work-life balance?
So I use something called an Aura ring, which obviously listeners won't be able to see, but it's quite a chunky looking ring on my finger. And it's supposed to be the most advanced sleep tracker. And it has not changed my life, but it's definitely improved it a lot. And I think tracking sleep is so important because when you've got this hard data, I can look back and say, if I go to bed at 10:30, I'm going to feel and be so much more productive the next day than if I go to bed at 11. So in that sense, it does have a big impact on my life.
Laura, have you found that using these simple technology devices, presumably you have found that it reduces your screen time significantly? And is that a large portion of the extra productivity you have that gives you the time off? How's it changed your working day?
It's definitely made me hugely more productive. So I can squeeze in what I usually do in an 8-hour day into 5 hours. And the thing is, a lot of my day will be out meeting with people. And naturally, you know, being in the fitness industry, you might do a workout with someone and then have a coffee after. So I need to be able to squeeze what is essentially a normal 8-hour day into something that's a lot less. So it frees up my time. But also, I think, you know, mentally it has a huge impact because I'm so much happier. You know, I'm not stressing out coming back from a meeting at 5 o'clock thinking, oh my God, I've got another 4 hours work because I've already done it. And, you know, we were talking about earlier, you could go shopping in the middle of the day if you wanted to. And it's just having that time like back to yourself and to doing other things. Like I always have other projects on the go. It's never just I'm solely like working on Fitty. And I think that's hugely important. People should have the time to kind of explore other things they want to do and things that they enjoy as well.
You agree, guys?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things we spoke about with the team recently, that most of the team have other projects and things that they're doing as well. Some own their own businesses doing other things, and it's really important that people get to kind of pursue that and are not just feeling like they're chained to the desk 24/7.
Or feel that they can pursue that as well.
Interesting. Well, Deborah, do you think this is going to increase as well? Because, you know, Generation Z, we talk about them in marketing terms.
Yes.
They're just sort of like a year into university at the
Yes.
moment. They are the first truly digital native generation.
Yes. I think the pressure is going to become greater and greater. The thing is, changing attitudes takes time. So, you know, you need forward-thinking business owners like the guys around the table to embrace flexible working. Technology is pushing it. Candidates and employees are pushing it. And businesses need to just move a little bit faster, I feel.
So apart from being more productive and having more spare time, are there any other benefits to your business? Or is it just a question of you are now more productive, you spend, you know, and so your well-being is increased?
I mean, you'd like to think that the customers and the clients get a better service because the people working with us are fresh and are motivated and are not overworked. And I guess that comes back in the feedback that we get. It's probably a bit more difficult to quantify, though, but that would be the impression I would get from...
Yeah, I think you can also, I hope that we're a lot more creative and we can come up with better ideas, future ideas and things like that because we've got more time to think about that kind of thing.
And that's the same with the core team and the core staff team as well, is that if they're not overworked, they can innovate and bring ideas to the table about ways of improving things, whereas if they're working overworked, they're essentially knackered and can't, they're just treading water and trying to keep their head above water rather than actually presenting ways we can improve things.
And have you noticed, other than being more productive and having more spare time, have you noticed any other business benefits for you?
I think, the biggest benefit has to be, you know, productivity leads to, well, ultimately it's going to have a direct impact on the business in terms of financials, but it's hard to kind of put any hard facts on something like that. I mean, I guess generally employee health and wellness, it's not just a nice idea anymore. It is a bottom line issue because, like Deborah said, you know, happy, healthy employees lead to a more productive and profitable business.
Yeah.
And building on that, there's stacks of research that says that happier employees, you know, don't take so much sick absence. their mental health is better, that they are more loyal. So you're saving recruitment costs every time. So every employee that stays is a recruitment cost you haven't got to find. The more loyalty you've got means the harder they're going to work for you. So there's a whole bunch of real transferable financial things that come from having a happy workforce. And what we know is 9 out of 10 people want flexibility. So if you give them that flexibility, they are happier.
Okay, before we wrap up, it's been so fascinating. I could probably go on all day about this, but let's be more productive than that. If you were all to give businesses who are looking to build a more flexible workforce one sort of golden rule or piece of advice, let's go around the room. We'll start with you, Nathan. What would be, and it can be something we've already spoken about, but what would be because we've given people a lot of information here. What would be the first step down the road to a more productive and effective working process?
I think you've got to be open-minded to change and changing your process. So you might have an idea, like we touched upon earlier, that this is how it will work best, and it may well work great for a year. But that doesn't always mean that that's how it's going to be the best way all the time. So being able to just change how you do things.
Adaptable, receptive, but open to listening as well to everyone.
Wonderful. I love it. Laura?
I would say, so unless you're paid on commission, there's no incentive to use time well. Like, we're not taught how. So I would say there's a level of education that needs to happen to actually show employees how to be most time effective. So bring in a technique like the Pomodoro technique, which is completely free to use, and just get people using that. And if it frees up an hour of their time, let them go early, or let them spend that hour doing something like brainstorming.
That's really important, actually, is to remember to give those rewards for the because I suppose initially as well, Deborah, it's going to be a learning curve, so it may feel like a counterproductive move initially, right?
Yes, and I think my advice would be to challenge the status quo. So whatever you're currently doing, think about it. Is it really the best way of working, and what else could you do that might make your workforce more flexible?
We've been pretty productive today, I think. And there's absolutely no need for us to work all hours, so let's call it a day. I realise what you've heard today might seem like a lot of new things to set up, and nobody really likes change. But if you put in the effort now, as you've heard from our guests, you're going to reap reward of more free time, be more productive and more successful. And don't forget, you don't need to do it all at once. Just take a step at a time until you work your way into your new processes, and make sure you reward yourself with time off if you've been successful at it. Restore that work-life balance, and in the words of the wonderful Laura, work smarter, not harder. I love that from your biography. Thank you so much to all the great company that we've had in the studio today, to Laura Fullerton, Nathan Ampofo, Edward Boone, Deborah O'Sullivan. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you all. I've loved this discussion. If you enjoyed the episode, do give us a shout out on Twitter. You can tag us in on @BTBusiness and let us know what you found most useful. That's all from me, Kate Russell, in good company. For more insights, help and advice on staying productive in business, head to bt.com/stay productive. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts in this series of In Good Company. Goodbye.